Hello, and welcome to the 60 for 30 project. My name is Xander Mailer with Kenosha Public Library. I am sitting here with Kendall West. Wes, how are you doing?
Doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing well on this fine day. The weather has been beautiful lately.
Ah, yes. Oh, yes.
So let's go right into it. Just gotta ask, what neighborhood are you from, or what neighborhood do you live in right now?
So I'm from the South Side. I'm a Lincoln neighborhood kid. That's where I grew up. That's where I like to call home. So went to Lincoln Elementary School. It's no longer there, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, as well, there's K-Tech that took over, went to Paideia Academy for a couple of years, and then I ended up going to Lincoln Middle School, and then from there to Tremper. So I guess really it was really one of those things where it was, bounce, bounce, bounce for the majority of us Southside kids. So.
Okay. But you still stayed Southside all that time, same area?
No, well, technically, no. in a way, no. After high school, joined the Army, got a chance to go overseas a few times, a couple of combat deployments to Iraq. And then I came home, was a police officer for the city of Montgomery, Alabama. Then was fortunate to be a police officer here in Kenosha. And then from there, went to become a legal instrument examiner out of Milwaukee, and currently working on the foundation, the National African American Foundation. And we are part of the African American Club here in Kenosha.
Wow.
So
that is a detailed past.
And that's just the, Cliff Notes. so yeah, no, like I said, born and raised, was able to travel, continue to travel, married, I guess she's my high school sweetheart. We met in high school. We have 3 children together, and like I said, we travel a lot. We got property here in Alabama that my father-in-law stays in, so it's kind of like our summer home. But we don't like to go to Alabama in the summer.
Yeah.
But at least we have we have family all over the place.
Okay. Wow. So, born and raised, you've been around a lot of places.
Yeah.
Gotta ask, what do you feel like is Kenosha's culture, or how have you experienced Kenosha's culture?
So the culture here in Kenosha, and I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for anybody else's experiences, obviously. But for myself, growing up on the South Side was a real bond. We had a lot of things going on when we were growing up, from the Lincoln Center to chat and shoes that my mom, she was a liaison for Lincoln Elementary for many years, working with the Mahones, obviously with the Lincoln Center. We had a lot going on to keep us engaged in our community and things like that. I'm not saying that those things are gone, but it's very, very few and far between when it comes to the culture that we grew up in, or that I grew up in. I was able to be able to stay out until the streetlights came on. I am a millennial, but I'm on the other side of it when it comes to, I guess, social, definitions of millennials. But the street lights came on. You was at the house. We would literally, especially during the summertime, we would get kicked out in the morning, and don't come home until because if you come in the house, you stay in the house. That was kind of the way we grew up. So. I grew up with 5 brothers and sisters, 6 including myself, and my mom, she stayed active, very, very, very much of a pillar here in Kenosha when it comes to, I guess, community development. the days of doing neighborhood cleanups and neighborhood gardens and things like that, my hands still hurt from plucking weeds, right? So, but that's what, kind of what I grew up when it comes to Kenosha. That's what I grew up seeing, going to the different festivals and things like that. Having an outlet like the Lincoln Center, being able to, I guess they would call us latchkey kids. Okay. So we were the kids that literally went from elementary school, went from Lincoln Elementary. We walked, past the house, probably snuck in the house a little bit to kind of get some, get a snack or two, and then literally walk right down the street on 16th Avenue and go to the Lincoln Center. And there we would have, our tutors, we would do our homework, we would do different plays, and it was a bunch of stuff that we were opened up to as kids. So a lot of us didn't have much to complain about, I guess, other than I wish I was an adult, because if I was a kid or if I was an adult, I would do X, Y, and Z. But ultimately, the culture for us was okay. It was solid. There were the times where there were issues, but I don't think I'm here for that. We're not going to talk about those. We're gonna keep a positive mind on those things. So yeah.
So that's how it was. How do you see it now? Like what's changed between that interconnectedness going between, going from a school to the Lincoln Center, and you're not being home for like all day, essentially, like being kicked out of the home, come back in the evening.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm fortunate. So I was fortunate to kind of raise my social economic status. Fortunate to live in a newer area here in Kenosha that doesn't have the same feel as what I grew up in. Okay. I don't want to say I grew up in a ghetto, but to us we didn't. We couldn't call it ghetto because we didn't know any better. You know what I mean? But now looking at it, from I guess the whole hindsight 2020 situation, it wasn't the most ideal place to raise your kids, but they made do, and they did, in my opinion, the men and women of the Lincoln neighborhood back in the day, they did a great job, as much as they could. So I guess to answer your question of what do I see that's different, I guess I can draw from the experiences that I had when I was a law enforcement officer here. That sense of community is gone. That sense of camaraderie and kind of back and forth from the north side and the south side type stuff or whatever, that's gone away a little bit. I believe that there are things that are out there that are reaching and that are searching for that old yesteryear camaraderie community situation going on. But in my opinion, it's kind of hard to have that feeling that I once had. So there are things that are happening now that are trying to, or that for myself at least, that I'm trying to move forward so that way those days can come back, because I believe that it was a good time.
What are some of those things you've been thinking bringing that back?
Yeah, so like I said, I was product of the Latchkey program at the Lincoln Center, and Mr. Mahone, Tim Mahone, and Artist Mahone, and their mom and dad, they literally were the father figures for a lot of us, the mother figures for a lot of us. And they took the Lincoln Center and they had an idea that being a hub for our community sort of like the Boys and Girls Club for the North Side. It was a hub for the community for them to do certain things and have certain programs and things like that. Well, unfortunately, the Lincoln Center closed down and merged with the Boys and Girls Club and the CYC, if I'm not mistaken, at the time. But they merged and it was gone. So what I'm working on now is, I guess, to give it some context.
Okay.
I can talk all day long, man. I'm sorry, but to give you some context, here in Kenosha, there are multiple cultures, right? We sit in between two major cities, being Milwaukee and Chicago.
Yep.
And we have an influx of other cultures, other nationalities, and things like that. There are people in and out of Kenosha, and it's kind of nice to see those things. Growing up, you would be able to go to places like the Italian American Club for different events. Let's say a wedding or wedding reception or something like that. Or the Swedish American Club for like a little dance party. My mom would rent that space out. There are also other festivals like the St. Mary's Festival. Those festivals were pillars in the community for a lot of those cultures. And ever since I could remember, there has been a little bit of a void, I guess. I don't know if I want to call it a void, but there's been a little bit of a space that hasn't been filled, or a gap that hasn't been filled with other cultures, especially the Black culture here in Kenosha, because the Black culture here in Kenosha is literally dripping with positive, amazing different avenues of life. You know what I mean? So, like I said, there were things like the the Italian American Club. I'm getting to my point of being the founder of the African American Club. After the civil unrest that happened last year, I realized that the accountability for our culture has to be taken back. And that's not me saying that the issues and things like that, or the riots that occurred, were because of us. But there are some who believe, or there are some who may believe that our culture, the Black culture, the Black population here in Kenosha, not so much started, but was a major part of it. And to me, that was very disheartening, because that was literally on the South Side. It literally happened in our neck of the woods, and to us who were born and raised in that area, we know better. We know that wasn't us. So to take that narrative back, I chose to do some research and things like that, and found that Kenosha has had multiple other cultural foundations and cultural clubs, social clubs, and things like that, but they've never had an African American club. And when I did more research, I realized that in the state of Wisconsin, there's never been.
Well, what, really?
Yeah, absolutely. And I did some more research, and come to find out that there are, if I'm not mistaken, and please, don't charge it to my head, but I believe there's 3 other African American clubs in the entire United States. One of which is in Florida, one of which is in Michigan, and the other I can't remember. But those African American clubs aren't necessarily the social clubs or the ideal clubs that I envision our African American club. So those are, gun clubs and like gardening clubs and things like that. But if there are, like I said, nationally, we are it. So I started the National African American Foundation and the African American Club here in Kenosha, and that's a place for us to. When I say us, I mean those who are for the culture, of the culture, who enjoy the culture of African American culture here, specifically in Kenosha, a place for us to use and take back those negative ideals or those negative issues that plague our city and our country, for that matter. The African American Club is going to not just be a social club. It is going to be we're going to base it off of a business incubator. And what we're going to do with that is we're going to allow members first, obviously, but we're going to allow people to come in with their ideas and be able to use that platform as backing. Just like how the Lincoln Center was for us.
Yeah.
There will be a daycare center. You know what I mean? There's going to be an art studio. There's going to be a place where a music studio for our kids who are musically inclined to go and lay something down on wax, right? We're going to do a bunch of different things to bring our culture in the hopes that we create our own Greenwood, Oklahoma type situation, or Black Wall Street. Not being exclusive, but being inclusive of everyone, but also highlighting our culture to start, making sure our culture is taken seriously. Our culture is taking advantage of our own ideas, our own ways of life and thinking, right? As well as educating others, right? Because there are some who are still out there who have no idea about things like Kwanzaa, right? They have no idea of Juneteenth, and that kind of throws me for a little bit, because growing up on the South Side, we were taught what Juneteenth was, right? We were able to live those experiences and understand what those experiences were. Like, I remember the first Miss Juneteenth. I remember having these big old cookouts and things like that at Lincoln Park, and basketball tournaments and things like that. So ultimately, we want to get back to that, but not necessarily say that back then it was so amazing type thing, but get back to a base so that way we can kind of show the future, how bright it can be. At the African American Club, it is my intention to target the Gen Zs, right? The generation after me. Not that they're lost or anything like that. It's not that kind of party. But so much so as that they have so many progressive ideas that get muddled with big brother and big sister, right? With what we believe is this and what we believe, and to me, if they are going to be our future, I would like to have a hand in making sure that our future is continuing to be bright. So yeah.
It's really about taking a lot of the narrative back into your own hands, and making sure that narrative stays positive, stays as a highlight for Kenosha's community, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. Like I said, it's not that we're at the African American Club, we are positive, right? We're always going to be positive. Everything that we do, we're going to go in it with integrity, and we're going to go in it with as much progression as possible. But we're not going to be naive either, right? There are those who have oppositions where they may hear the name the African American Club and feel a way. But I want people to understand that we are not those feelings that they have. They are those feelings that they have, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but I guess to keep it simple, it's like if you have a negative situation or negative mind or vibe, just by hearing the African American Club, it ain't from us. That's something that's from within, and we will be more than happy to kind of change those feelings through. Again, our cultural experiences, our history, especially our history here in Kenosha. The vast majority of the Kenoshians that I know and can point to are some of the most amazing people that I can name off. I can name off a bunch of people, but I'm not, because I won't.
We only got 30 minutes.
And I don't want to miss anybody either, because they'll see this on YouTube and be like, hey, listen, what we're not going to do is not going to forget my name. but no, it's a process. You know what I mean? And right now we're in the African American Club. We're in the fundraising stage because we don't have a physical presence yet. You can go to theafricanamericanclub.com to kind of get some information on, or to get a lot of our information of what we're looking to do here in Kenosha, and not just Kenosha, but we're looking to have anywhere where there's a community of African Americans who feel the need to express themselves in certain ways, or they feel they need support in other ways, or things like that throughout their community, whether it's in Chicago or in a little town that's population 12 type situation. So we're going to I guess have our headquarters is going to be here. And we're going to eventually branch out once we get to a point where we are not perfect, but established, and established with good bones and good intentions behind us.
Yeah.
So
all that has started here in Kenosha,
all of it.
Making sure the culture that you want to see is one that keeps going.
Absolutely. And it's like I said, it's one of those things where you, I was fortunate to live in a time where, maybe it was because I was naive and didn't see all of the negative things that were happening. Not saying that I was shielded or whatever, but the real terrible things that happened came with a community who could explain. Or came with a big brother or a big sister who could explain. My father wasn't always around, and he didn't stick around long enough for us to have that bond that most men need. But he gave me enough to understand that it's not always a negative. It could be a positive. It's just how we look at it, and how we choose to manipulate that situation. Yeah. So, like I said, we are again in our fundraising stage for a facility. The goal is to have a bit of a compound with land and a place for us to have our own festivals. There's no reason why we can't have there is like I said, we were talking about festivals earlier. Yep. The St. Mary's Festival. Well, we have some predominantly black churches like the Second Baptist Church, where we could have a Second Baptist Festival. We can give back and have a Coleman Chapel Festival, right, or Acts Church Festival, right? We can have these different festivals and based on the culture that we've already learned from, right? We can kind of give back and show our culture through our religious experiences, right? So there's a vast group of African Americans who have so much invested culturally, spiritually, mentally, emotionally in the city of Kenosha. I believe at the African American Club we'll be able to kind of show those things and hopefully be able to reach others in a more positive way.
Wow. And I'm sure even also part of your experience, both as in the Army as well as a police officer, has helped form what's gone into trying to influence culture here as well. It's just serving as those. How's that affected just how you've perceived culture in Kenosha at all?
I had the ability to serve my country, to serve my community, to serve my family, and I've been fortunate to see, I guess, two different sides, especially when it comes to law enforcement, seeing, the rules and regulations, policy, procedures that are implemented, why they're implemented, how they're expressed and or handled, right? And then I see on the other side of it, from the civilian's mindset, that these rules, regulations, policy, procedures that are from, let's say, for instance, the police department, they have a reasoning, right? But the explanation doesn't always hit, right? And if you can, and what I found with myself is that if you can take the time to explain it, hey, if you have the ability to just let those emotions of the civilians, right, play out, because they're just emotions, and then be able to have that conversation, then we can get to the actual resolution, right? And I'm not saying there are specific people at the police department here in Kenosha or in Montgomery, Alabama, where I worked at as well, but there are disconnects, right? And to me, unfortunately, I wasn't able to kind of fulfill my my goal to kind of bring that or bridge that gap that way. But with the foundation and things like that that I have going on, hopefully I'm able to kind of get people to understand that they have rules, regulations, policy, procedures. We have our rights, right? And meeting in the middle and understanding those two sides is very, very pertinent to a more positive structural law enforcement experience. Yeah. So, like I said, if I can have a chance to have a conversation with people, it works.
Yeah, all to help forward to show positive culture.
Oh yeah. I think when I'm gonna say this, I'm probably gonna get killed, but law enforcement's easy. It's easy. It was fun. It was easy to me because the rules were there, right? The hard part, right? The black and white was there. So you can't do this because if you do this, this is going to happen, right? The hard part is getting people who didn't take any law classes, didn't understand how rules and doesn't understand the black and white, using that black and white and remixing it, right, into verbiage, verbiage, or having a conversation with someone and using it to explain it to them on their level of understanding. Yeah. And that level of understanding can be, from, especially the black community, it could be a PhD, it can be all the way down to a 4-year-old child. But to me, that was the hard part of policing. But I got pretty well at it. So.
Well, thank you. To just close out, is there anything else you'd like to say, whether to just general Kenoshans, leadership in Kenosha, anything we missed?
I don't want to, again, point anybody out, so, hi, Mom. But that's it. That's it, really.
All right. Well, Wes, thank you for joining us, and thanks for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.